Marcus Aurelius, my favorite Stoic author. And to just a little bit of background and summary on what it is, what the ideas are, who it was, and what it's about.
Hmm.
Basically, Meditations was written by, and he was considered the last of the good Roman emperors. I believe
Hmm.
he reigned about 200 AD, something like that, give or take.
Hmm.
And he was writing this not to publish it, but rather as a journal that was never intended to be read by somebody else. It was principles of Stoicism that he believed were by which he could orient his mind, orient his life, and live in a way that is virtuous, productive, and also leads to internal happiness and well being. And so, some of the core principles of this book, the things that he talks about, are a things clearly as a part of nature and having a mindset that everything that happens is exactly how it is. There's no alternate reality which things are different that we could get to by just strongly resisting in front of us. Rather, we get so much more out of life by fully embracing, fully accepting what's in front of us and letting go of a lot of the things that bring us suffering and cause us to act unvirtuously in the world, like strong desire, strong inclination toward wanting to be seen a certain way by other people, strong lust for fame or for posthumous
Hmm.
fame or for reputation, or just a sort of victim mentality and feeling like, woe is me, this is horrible that's going on to me. And so
Hmm.
he's constantly reminding himself over and over that the universe has been existing for a seemingly infinite amount of time, and it's seemingly infinitely large. We're humans living for an ephemeral moment on a tiny rock in the middle of infinite space that will soon pass away, and every single person that knows us away, and it will be consumed by an exploding sun. And we're only here for a brief moment experiencing this life, this one chance to live in accordance with our nature, this one chance to connect with who we are, what the universe is, and sort of what he considers
Okay, it seems that let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm back again. You are back again.
Okay. Seems that one thing that I need to accept in the world is that my internet is horrific.
Yes, I actually thought it was mine, so I checked it, but it's good.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it's so I have no idea why. It's supposed to be very
mhm.
good internet. I'm trying to join from the app again so that it's not from my web browser. So give me one sec.
All right. I'm not sure if my video is working or not. Okay.
Yes, great.
Mm,
So I also love how he's talking about in the beginning of the book. Actually, there are multiple books, like his diaries. But in the first part, which the reader gets presented, he just thanks everybody from which he learned how he has been treated, what he has been learning, to just be content with sleeping on a wooden plank and requiring nothing than the skin of animals or whatever. Thinking about the education and thanking his grandfather that he teach taught him that he shouldn't listen to people talking bullshit all the time. Kind of that. Uh, I really like that he just is so grateful for what he has and has been given. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you
No doubt.
were talking about the general theme of this book, about how he refers to that the universe is just so vast and endless, and that the time before we have been brought to existence was so vast and endless, and the people who were famous and were applauded to, they are now equally dead as the people which served them or which they conquered, and so on. And that we will eventually share the same destiny as everybody else walking this planet. That we soon, rather sooner or later, will be gone from this earth and will be uh, given back to nature, into this endless circle of change, in this endless circle of decay and growth out of this uh, decay again. So that something new will grow out of the old, and that's necessary for the old to go, that something new can grow out of it.
Yeah, and it's awesome how just these very simple reminders, these simple truths of what is in the world, of what is reality. The reality is things are changing all the time. The reality is there was an infinite amount of time before I was born, and there's about to be an infinite amount of time after I die. Almost all of the time in the universe is when I don't even exist. And if people talk about me when after I die, one way or the other, it doesn't affect me at all. It literally does not matter to me. Vincent van Gogh is now acclaimed across the entire world. Everybody loves his art. There's a huge interactive exhibit for Vincent van Gogh that I just saw in Cleveland, but yet nobody recognized him during his own life. He was miserable his own life. He was abjectly poor and unrecognized and was not having a good time. And all this posthumous fame, all these people talking about him, all of the reputation and the honors that he now gets mean nothing to him. He has no idea. He never had any idea. And just the other way, if there was somebody that was very acclaimed and revered during their life, and then after they die, everybody hates them, well, they still have no idea. It doesn't affect them. And you can even apply this to during your life because everybody that's alive right now is soon going to die. Like all of us are going to die. Nobody is going to remember anything that's going on right now in 100,000 years. It's in
Mhm.
100,000 years is a very short amount of time in the span of the universe. And so just a reminder that nothing, even the things that seem like they're a huge deal, they're not that big of a fucking deal, is such a useful mindset to adopt and such a useful perspective shift in order to accept what goes on in our life and just roll with the changes of our experience.
Mhm. It's kind of memento mori. Remember that you will die. Remember that everything changes and nothing will stay the same. And soon, everything of big importance for you right now is just individually important for you right now. But for the whole, for the total species, for the total planet, it will not matter a bit if you got angry about this thing or just didn't react to the other thing. It's equally unimportant to the whole thing that is happening right now. So, why should you waste your energy just on tiny matters? Why would you just get upset just because something happened to you that you wished that did not happen to you? So I really like this useful reminder that outside events cannot touch your soul, like he writes in his diaries. It is only your reaction to these outside events that can touch your soul. You can resonate with thoughts and judgments that you yourself have all the control about. You can control your judgments about things. But if you also can control your judgment in a way where you can say, this does not matter a little tiny bit, even a little tiny bit, then it's not worth for me to react in a way that disturbs my peace. So just accepting what happens to you will bring you some kind of peace and tranquility for your life to be much easier to live, much less effort to be taken in to live a decent and good life.
Yeah, and I would kind of piggyback on that and riff a little bit on how Stoicism, in my opinion, is a different kind of philosophy. And it honestly connects very heavily to my thoughts about Buddhism. And it's fascinating that when you look at what the Stoics say and you look at what the Buddhists say about, first of all, their goals, and second of all, their methods, you see a tremendous amount of overlap, despite the fact that Stoicism was born in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Buddhism was born in northern ancient India and then spread into the Far East, and completely different languages, almost contemporaries, and did not influence each other at all based off of what we know. And there would probably be evidence if they did. Yet, both of them are claiming very similar goals, and kind of nested in different language. It's how do you live a good life? How do you stay true to who you are? How do you clearly comprehend what your existence is, what your experience is, and what it all means in a way that turns back around into acting virtuously, into not suffering, and into enjoying your existence here in a way that's beneficial for you and all the beings around you. And they separate themselves by being tremendously practical. And they're practical by reminding you of what is, by giving a clear perspective of what you're actually seeing, what you're actually experiencing, and bringing you out of the distortions in your perception that come from the common cultural um, interpretations of life and of events within your life. And so when you see things like all things are passing very fast, existence is change. When you see things like I awake to do the work of a human being, so why am I dissatisfied? If you see things like there is a common nature of the universe, there is a fate and a natural law that governs us all, and that we're just experiencing as a small part of a whole the changes that are going down, and we're just a piece of this giant puzzle. And so we shouldn't be conceiving of ourselves as a separate individual against all else that is. We're a part of the whole. And so the things that go up and down for us are just a part of the flow of everything that is. And even when you see things like very practical admonitions, such as are your habitual thoughts, such also will be the character of your mind. For the soul is guided by the thoughts. And you see that all the time in Buddhism as well. Watch your thoughts because they shape your heart. They color who you are. Your
Hmm.
emotions, your ability to accept what is, the degree to which you desire something that you don't have, or the degree to which you resist something that you don't want to be, or crave something that you want more of. These things are fundamental to the degree to which you suffer in the world, or to the degree, on the other hand, to which you thrive and to which you can experience true peace, true equanimity, and a foundation from which you can do things within the world and sort of flow like a rock through water, and the degree to which you can experience your life with a peace and with an authenticity and with a genuine love for other beings and for experience and an acceptance of the ups and the downs that are inevitable in this human journey. And so I think that the sort of exceptionality of Stoicism within philosophy, as it's not just another esoteric doctrine of people arguing about definitions or giving an impractical, abstract interpretation um, of how things are or how we can understand logic or blah blah blah. It actually is an extremely practical handbook to living life, and it's no coincidence, in my opinion, that it rhymes almost perfectly and almost always with the teachings of Buddhism that are common amongst all the sects and that haven't been sort of co-opted into some kind of hierarchy or power structure by a particular sect of Buddhism. The things that are sort of the eightfold noble path and the four noble truths. These things rhyme almost perfectly with Stoicism, and it's because both schools were focused on how do we eliminate suffering? How do we live in a way that's clearly comprehending how things are and is true to our own
Hmm.
nature in a way that not only reduces suffering but brings peace, equanimity, virtue, and just practical ways of existing within the world. And so that's why I think everybody, regardless of their philosophical bents or regardless of their religious bents, should adopt the principles and practices of Stoicism and Buddhism, whichever form speaks to them the most clearly within their daily thought habits, within their mindsets, because I think it can just lead to such a tremendous liberation of the mind and such an ability to, for the first time, step outside of the suffering, step outside of the resistance and clinging to the everyday events that are inevitably going to be a part of our path.
Absolutely practical philosophy, so to say. I guess that's why both types of philosophy, like Buddhism and Stoicism, just survived such a long time and even thrived, because they were extremely practical to the people practicing them. And I also adore how much of awareness there has to be to even recognize what is. It's like he says all the time, watch your breath, watch your breath, and watch your thoughts. And that points to this practice of awareness. Just be aware what is there. Just be present and be there where you are. Just accept what comes to you. And don't have these forms of thoughts. Don't let them overrule the way reality really is and shape your reaction, because you will be disappointed that it won't happen what you thought will happen. So I really like this, that the philosophy is just so practical. As you said, reduces suffering and brings brings you to even thrive in a highly unstable environment. Like Marcus Aurelius went to war all the time, and his last years he has been in the field where the battles were, and just lived inside tents and wrote down his meditations. And even funnier is it, I guess Taleb also refers to Stoicism as Buddhism with an attitude. Like a Stoic is a Buddhist that says "fuck you" to fate. And Funny thing also, 4 or 5 years ago, I traveled a little bit. I guess that's where we met also, just before we met. Yes.
Maybe, yeah.
Yes, just before we met, I traveled to Thailand, and on the way there, I read this book also.
Hmm.
And 1 month later, I joined a Buddhist retreat where we meditated and were silent for 10 days in a row. And in one line, he also writes, "Thank you for my grandfather who made me not require more than a wooden plank to sleep on and some fur." And then I was in this monastery, or it was called Wat Suan Mok. I guess that's translated to Garden of Liberation. It was quite interesting experience and quite interesting to just be aware of your thoughts and practice this being aware of what happens, being aware what you expect, and just accepting reality as it is. And inside this, it was like a student's dormitory where just concrete mattresses with a bamboo mat and wooden pillows. So
Cozy.
it was perfect. Yeah, it was not cozy, but there I just recognized that you don't really recognize anything while you sleep. You just recognize that it's some kind of hard when you try to fall asleep, but then you will be falling asleep and sleep, and then you recognize it's kind of hard when you stand up, but you're pretty fast getting used to it. So quite interesting experience.
Yeah,
Just the relation between this practical philosophies of Stoicism and Buddhism.
yeah. I remember actually when we were in Amsterdam when we met, you told me about the trip to Thailand, and I asked where you're going next, and you said you were going to a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And I'm pretty sure the words out of my mouth were, "Why the fuck would you want to do that?" And because at the time I'd never been exposed to meditation or anything like that. But I remember
Yeah.
meeting you and thinking, okay, this guy knows something that I don't know. Like this guy gets something. This guy has a peace and an equanimity and an understanding that I've not seen before. And believe it or not, it was sort of a just a small moment at the time, but that was what I think really planted the seed of my interest in meditation and what led to me beginning to meditate quite seriously a year or two later, which is kind of interesting how that works out.
Yes, kind of interesting how destiny or whatever just happens and brings the pieces together.
Yeah, and now people are asking me when I tell people that I want to go on one of those retreats, they ask me the same thing.
Why the fuck do you want to go on a retreat like this one?
Oh
Great,
man.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about just some tools and tricks and mindsets and reframings that Marcus goes into in the book, and ones that stand out to us. One thing that I really like how he describes, and one thing that he kind of comes back to over and over and over, is that things are exactly how they are. There are a lot of things that tend to frustrate us, a lot of things that we have an instinct to resist, a lot of things that everybody else around us is really and frustrated by and wants to avoid. And the framing that he uses, what he kind of addresses a situation like this with, is um, like you're so upset of this action of the actions of this shameless man, and then ask yourself if it would be possible if there are no shameless men in the world. And ask yourself, is it possible that there would be no shameless men in the world? Just no frustrating men, no people that are trying to grab whatever they can from you, regardless of how it affects other people. Is that possible? No, it's not. Like we've seen our whole life. We've seen all throughout the history books. These people are everywhere. They exist. They will always be a part of our life. And so, since it's not, you shouldn't be requiring the impossible. You shouldn't be demanding that there's zero people like this for you to be happy. You shouldn't be punishing and tormenting yourself and resisting the fact that these people are out there. You're encountering one of these people who, by necessity, by no escape, there's no other way it can be. It is exactly how it is. These people exist in the world, and you're standing in front of one of them, and you're interfacing with one of them. So why are you so upset? Why do you require the impossible? Why do you need something to be a way that it never could be by your own admission, that you know yourself? It could never be a fact that every single person is perfect. Then why are you getting so upset over seeing something that you know is real, over the world being exactly as you know that it is, and it inevitably is? So that kind of reminder of it is this way. Like these people are there. I know that. This is no surprise to me. I think
Yes,
that is
like
a
a
it's a
grape,
useful reframing.
like grape, like if you expected people to not be shameless, it would be the same like you would expect or a grape not to be juicy, a grape not
Yeah,
to be made to wine like this.
yeah, exactly.
It's, uh, it's, I also like how he somehow all these ideas of recent psychology, like Viktor Frankl, who was in the concentration camp in Auschwitz or in Germany somewhere. He is pretty famous for this saying that in between cue and response, there is a room where which you can decide how you will react. And pretty much the same thought Marcus Aurelius also writes down 1800 years ago. Like the soul stays touched by outside events, and you are able, through your judgment, to make your soul resonate with what you want. So
Hmm.
it's somehow a similar way of looking at things. So do not react unnecessarily. Choose how you want to react. Expect that people will be shameless. And if you will be surprised by people being shameless, then ask yourself, why wouldn't you expect a grape to be juicy? So why wouldn't you expect people that you meet inside your day, inside your daily routine, being shameless or being evil or being angry to you? So just this practical way of visualizing the things that will and can happen, because everything acts according to its nature. Like a tree bears fruit, like an apple tree bears apple, and so on. Everything is according to this deep-seated root of his or herself, or himself or itself. So expect it to be according to what is written down in their genetic code, what he is
Yeah.
calling his kernel, or what, however. Do you know how he's calling it? Yeah, I'm not sure how to translate it.
Ah, um, I
Out of
forget.
your
I don't,
innermost being,
he calls
or
it his nature a lot.
oh
Yeah, your
yeah,
innermost
nature.
nature. Yeah.
Yes, out of his own nature. So
It's time to accept that my terrible Wi-Fi is a part of the common nature.
yes. Just expect that lags will happen. Just expect to take the break as something to breathe,
Yes, exactly,
to take a
exactly.
break and to rest a little bit.
Yes,
But nice to have you back again.
it's good to be back. It's good to be back. Yeah, and also along the lines of your own nature, he talks a lot about doing good. And it's very natural when we do good to have an expectation that it will be acknowledged or it will be rewarded or people will be grateful for it. there have been a few times recently in my life where I did something generous for somebody, and they sort of, I gave them an inch and they took a mile, and they sort of took advantage of it in a way that was very, it was kind of challenging for me to go through it because I did something with intention to be good and that I didn't have to do. And then it was not treated with gratitude, but rather it was used sort of against me or in a way that was more than I had. And so I'd run into this very circumstance that he was describing, and what he said is like, you did something good. Like that's you're living according to your nature by doing something generous for somebody, by being truthful with somebody, by doing something right in the world. And so, what extra reward are you looking for? You've already gotten your own reward by being true to your nature. The eye doesn't expect a reward for seeing. The ear doesn't expect a reward for hearing. You're being true to yourself. You're living in alignment and in congruence with who you truly are. You're free by this. And so don't turn around and expect to be paid back. Don't turn around and expect them to even recognize it. Truly, if you're doing things with the right intentions, then you should be content in the good deed in and of itself without any other associated good coming from it. It is an end in and of itself. And it's very easy, when you do have a generous intention, even when your intentions are good, to subtly let those expectations of recognition or of gratitude or of reciprocation to enter into the equation. And if that happens, you can just clearly look in the mirror and see, oh, my intentions were not as true as I thought they were. Like I need to recalibrate and recognize I'm living in accordance with my nature. Why is that not good enough for me?
Hmm. And don't expect anything back. Just live according to your nature. And don't let the other hand know what the other hand gives. So
Exactly.
it's a common part of philosophy, isn't it? It's like Christianity is also um, just give generously without virtue signaling and letting other people know that you gifted generously. And that's a really big part of it. I also like the part where he describes this anti-fragility. Just be anti-fragile. Be like the fire that gets blown on when the wind comes. Don't be like the candle that gets blown out when a tiny breath comes. So I really like how many parts of recent philosophy just get covered in his Stoic thoughts, and how practical it is, thinking in ways, and being inspired how he takes on his challenges that he faces each day. So I guess his reflections also through his writing were a tool for him to just reflect on the things that happened to him, just reflect in a way how he learned to think about things from his Stoic teachers like Epicure or Epictetus.
Yeah,
And
and the framing of something that happens to you can have such a huge role in determining, first of all, how you experience it, what effect it has on your psychological state, but also what comes from it. And my favorite way that he puts it is, the universe isn't doing this to you. The universe is prescribing this for
yes,
your benefit, for your growth, for your learning, for your development, for your training and acceptance of what is, and for your ability to weather storms and be anti-fragile. Don't look at, like, just like a doctor might prescribe rigorous exercise to somebody in order that they can become more physically fit, the universe will prescribe conflict in my life to make me more able to weather the storms and to ride the waves of emotions. Or the universe will prescribe fear of failure to me, or prescribe ups and downs and regular setbacks that happen. And the universe prescribes setbacks and difficulties and challenges and frustrations to every single person. And so, do we want to look at these with a mindset of helplessness, with a mindset of, oh, fuck, the universe is doing this to me. I am a victim of this circumstance. Or do I want to look at this as something that I can be grateful for, something that I can look for? Okay, it's trying to grow me. The universe is the common nature is trying to build all this set of circumstances and set of challenges and set of learnings and growing opportunities for my benefit. And when you can see these things for the exact same things in a different light, the exact same things in a light that leads to growth, that leads to positivity, that leads to acceptance, that doesn't lead to resistance and to desire for change and to clinging, then it can enable you to experience, first of all, such just a better set of emotions, such a greater sense of equanimity, a gratitude, a happiness, a joy, a peace. But also, it can enable you to look for opportunities and to look for ways that you can embrace this and jump into it in a way that can grow you, in a way that can actually make you stronger.
It's also referring to the fact that nature optimizes for the whole and not for the individual. And I really love how he also has thoughts of predecessor thoughts of evolutionary movement. Like he sees into nature and sees that
Yeah.
individuals die, and but you can learn something from it. Maybe you will adapt your strategy, so your battles or fights will be different, and that everything comes and just uh, optimizes for the whole and not for the individual. And also he says that we should focus on things that we can control and not pray for the gods and ask, why had this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? Why did my child get lost? Or why did my ancestors die? Or why did my parents die? Or whatever. Do not ask for things to happen in a way that you wanted it to happen, but ask for more strength. Change your prayers in a way where you ask for more strength to go through the pains of the universe prescribing you, or the nature at whole prescribing you situations where you can grow in. So change your prayers in a way where you ask for more strength, and change your prayers in a way where you ask for more wisdom to view the things differently, in a way where you ask for the universe to ask for more wisdom to view the things differently. Yes.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that another sort of remnants that's particularly useful is he encourages himself, don't pray that this burden is lifted from you. Desire it. Don't pray for this difficulty to, or this person to not say this about you. Pray that you won't be offended and pained by it. And I think it's just or Buddhism or just any practice about the world, which is your mind creates your world. The way that you interface with the events that come to you in your life has a greater effect on um, the way that you experience them than the experience themselves. You have so many people in objectively great circumstances that many people would crave that are just living in abject suffering. You have many people that are living in squalor or in very challenging circumstances with tons of shit going wrong for them in bad health or in physical pain or in hunger even or sleeping on a concrete bed with a bamboo mat, for example, who are in bliss. And the way that you experience your life happens from the inside. It doesn't happen from the outside. We're all in our minds looking out, thinking thoughts and feeling emotions and having this experience. And it's so much more moldable than society or the common mindset believes. It's so much more moldable than we're reminded by anyone around us. And the fact is, we can experience great things just by shifting the ways we look at things. And it is within our control. We don't have to pray that we can have sex with this person. We can rather just use what's within our control to not desire that anymore and to thereby not have that deficiency. Your satisfaction really has to do with the distance between what you have and what you want. And a lot of people are only looking at how can I get what I want? How can I change what I have or what I don't have or what I'm free from? Whereas in reality, the one that we can control, the one that's most within our grasp is how can I change what I want? How can I change what I want to want less? How can I change what I want to be content? Or how can I change what I want to accept these challenges that are in front of me or accept this physical pain or accept this thing that somebody else said or did or accept this thing that somebody else thinks about me? How can I change that part of things? Because ultimately, that is the lever by which we can totally flip the subjective inner experience that we have, our happiness, our effectiveness, our peace, the way that we love others, the way that we view ourselves as connected or separate from the rest of nature, from the rest of humanity. And it's so within our control, unlike the things that are happening outside of this. And so really we're focusing our efforts in mass in the wrong place. We're focusing our efforts on desire and resistance of these events that are we can make a difference, the place that we can move this shit, the place that we can really rock and live a good life and be true to ourselves and find peace and joy and happiness. They're within and they're within our control, but it's a single player game. Nobody's going to applaud you for playing the single player game. Nobody is going to recognize you. You won't get any awards. Nobody's going to point out. This has to be something that you view as valuable for yourself, that you recognize is within your control. And then you take the steps, you resist the temptations, you ride the wave, and you undertake the learning and the growth, and work slowly but surely toward wisdom, and then you can win the single player game, or you can make it very far in the single player game. But even then, nobody's going to see that you're doing well. Nobody's going to see that you're doing all right, but you get to experience what it's like. You get to experience what's inside of your mind, for good or for ill. And so I think that it's an undertaking that everybody should be taking probably quite seriously if they want to live a good life, but it's very hard to, because not many people are talking about it compared to the external events. It's not something that's visible, and it is completely divorced from any sort of common societal games or status contests that people are typically consumed in.
Mhm. I love this metaphor of the distance between what you have and wanting of what you don't have. The distance between wanting and having. Just move not what you have, but what you want. So reduce the distance, so you will be grateful. Another definition of gratefulness is, I guess, wanting what you already have.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
I also like that metaphor of the world is happening from the inside out. So
Yeah.
you, in effect, interpret what happens in a way, what happens. And there's also always this discussion about are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? So the pessimist is this glass metaphor, or this metaphor of is it half full or is it half empty? So the optimist says it is half full, but the stoic the stoic person says, how grateful am I to even have a glass, and inside the glass water which I can drink, which refills my cells with fluid so that I can survive and live another day in this beautiful world. And how good it is that I have the ability to refill this glass of water, so that even if it gets flipped over and spills out, that I have the ability to refill it. How great it is. So it's not even optimist, not even a pessimist, but something meta.
Yeah.
Something much more, so something dynamic, so to say, that you accept what happens and deal with it and make the best out of it, what happens, and interpret it in a way which enables you to make the best out of it. It's also a big part, I believe, interpreting it in a way which enables you to make the best out of what happens to you. It's not always easy to even recognize how you initially react because of your belief systems or because of your habitual thoughts. But I guess he also writes that you should leave out all unnecessary things out of your thinking and talking, so that you won't waste your time and energy doing the things that don't matter at all, so that you have more time for the muse to come and more time to really live out your genius. Oh yeah, I guess your inner nature is your genius. I guess he calls it genius.
Hmm.
But I really like that, um, leaving out the unnecessary stuff and choosing the interpretations that enable you. And that requires this awareness of your thoughts, of your thought process. It's not easy, but it's practical. It's
Yeah.
you have to kind of train for it, train your thoughts for that you can recognize which is necessary and which is unnecessary. Unnecessary are the things that just disable your growth, just interpreting yourself as a victim. That's not necessary. That won't enable you to act in a way where you can find luck much better.
Very true.
I also I found a reference to Skin in the Game also, where he
Oh yeah.
praises the Aten people that people of status and position are required to also risk their lives and are required to do this stuff and are required to only despise death. Somehow is this was said. I have not
Yeah.
translated it yet, but
Yeah, and he was living practicing what he was preaching there. He was out there writing this when he was on the battlefront, like
mhm,
on the frontier with his armies as the emperor, risking a shot to the chest with an arrow just like everybody else.
mhm,
Something that I respect quite a bit about leaders of those days. I also
mhm,
think it's cool and a bit telling that many of the wisest and greatest leaders that have since lived, if you think of George Washington, if you think of, well, this is going to sound American centric if I say another American, but Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, and many leaders of Europe too, of course, have been have had copies of this very book, Meditations, with them when they were doing
mhm,
many of their greatest things. And I think that it's telling that there's such an outsized hype within the groups that are doing the hardest things, within the groups that are undertaking the boldest and most ambitious goals and accomplishing them and interfacing with the real world and taking on risks. I think this is a book for people like that, for people who want to have a practical philosophy and live their life in a way that that doesn't accept small boundaries and also doesn't lead to them getting in their own way and them resisting and turning their mind into a knot in a way that gets in the way of their goals.
mhm. And just because you mentioned all those great leaders, and one of those great leaders also was Nelson Mandela, I guess,
Mm,
of South Africa. He was a lawyer first and then stood up against this segregation and spent, I guess, more than 20 years in prison. And after he got out of prison, he got asked by a journalist, how did you survive all this prison? And Nelson Mandela, who also just read copies of Marcus Aurelius' book in prison, and Nelson Mandela just said, "I did not survive. I prepared for it."
mm, that's beautiful.
Uh, so this philosophy is kind of a preparation for things to happen. Like everything can happen that can happen. Also the negative stuff. So be prepared that also the bad stuff can happen to you. And see for yourself that nature optimizes for the whole, not for individual. But you can, through your judgment, take advantage of whatever happens to you as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to thrive.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Nice, man. Well, that was a lot of my notes that I had on the book. Any other thoughts that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Same here. It was a lot, and I really love the metaphor of nature going in circles. That everything that comes and grows out of the old stuff, that everything will go back into its pieces. And I really like the reflections of that all the time before us was nothing, and all the time that comes after us was nothing. We just live this one moment, and only this moment we have. Not the past can be taken away from us, not the future, only this moment. And everybody who does not agree that his moment will be taken away can just stay with his moment and do the best he can.
No doubt, man. Everything is exactly how it is. I look forward to embracing it. I feel very grateful for it.
Yes, me too, man. So let's wrap up this beautiful conversation. Thank you, Peyton. It's been a pleasure. Any thoughts on a next book we want to read together, reread together, and discuss?
And one last internet disconnection for us there for good measure. Yes,
Everything
so
is as it is.
exactly. It's all a part of the common nature, my man. It is good talking to you as always. Really enjoyed this discussion.
Yeah, me too, man. Any thoughts on the upcoming book that we want to reread together and discuss after that?
Cut out again. What did you say? Any thoughts?
Any thoughts on the next book that we want to reread together?
Good question.
Maybe
So
something
many
like Peter Drucker's Effective Executive or Anthony de Mello's Awareness or...
awareness. I would be down for Awareness by DeMello. That's one of my favorite books.
Okay, then let's do this one.
It's a book that I need right now too. I can tell that I sort
Yes.
of I've been feeling lately that I've been so consumed with my thoughts, so obsessed with, especially with my work. It becomes very easy to get wrapped up in it quite a bit, and I need sort of a recalibration and a reminder of how to be present, to be aware, to come into my senses and not live all of my life in my thoughts. So I look forward to rereading that. It definitely will be timely for me.
Yes, also for me as well. Hey, I have the feeling that all the books we reread are just practical books that come in the right times for us to reread them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree. This was one, Meditations was one where when I was reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, like that is how it is. Like that, this is exactly what I needed to be reminded of right now. And
Yes,
I'm pretty sure I'll be the same with Awareness.
yes, I'm pretty sure as well. Thank you, my man.
Yeah, it's great talking to you as always, bro. Really appreciate these combos. Looking forward to the next one.
Looking forward to the next podcast, man. Have a great day, Peyton. And
Take care.
take care. Thank you.
Bye bye.